I can take you exactly back. So I had just returned from a great trip to the US with my friends in 2012, I think, and it was 2012 was the first year I was going to miss. I was going to not play grade cricket. So until that point, I'd played from 2000 till 2011 or something, including I'd already moved to Melbourne, and for whatever reason, I felt inspired to write a blog article. So you said two. There were three of us with the Grade Cricketer, so Dave ran a blog called The Public Apology. It's very funny, and a lot of people contributed to it. And I wrote a piece called How to Make It in Grade Cricket, an Instructional Guide. And so it was the very first conception of this thing. And it's quite it still stands up today to things we talk about, but it was really about all of the unwritten rules of making it in grade cricket. So it touched on the social conventions, what you go up the grades through rigs, and don't if you're going to do drugs, do the right kind of drugs. It's really about exposing holding a mirror up to a lot of the unwritten rules of cricket in Australia, or grade cricket. And I didn't think much of it other than it was just a satisfying exercise to do. But this is 2012. It achieved some kind of viral result. And this is 2012. This is and it was put on a website. So I don't even think it was pushed through social or anything like that. It's just people went to the website and started sharing the link around, and underneath there were a few comments, and one was from Gideon Higgs, which I was floored by. So, and then another one was from Justin Langer, which we actually put on the screen in our Brisbane live show with him there. So I said, if it wasn't for your encouragement, this thing wouldn't have taken off. But basically, Gideon and JL wrote something, and it got shared around a lot, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. There's obviously some resonance to the idea, to the grade cricket prism of viewing the game. And so from that, a couple of weeks later, I birthed the Grade Cricketer on Twitter, and it was anonymous, and it was just a way of writing pithy 140 character idea observations. And very soon after one of the tweets, I can't remember exactly when, but it blew up. It went to 10,000 followers or something like that. And so I ran it anonymously solo for a year, and it got to something like 10 to 15k followers. And then I thought I was working at Telstra at the time. This was I'd go get a coffee and tweet something. And after a year, I told a couple of people I was doing it because I needed some kind of cred, with my friends. But I was like, oh, well, I'd like some other people to contribute, to this. And so I wrote an email and it was actually 7 people, inviting them to submit their tweets. And Higgins and Dave were the only 2 who took it up, so the other 5 missed out.
Unlucky guys.
Yeah. So they took it up and contributed to the content, and they added heaps of content to it, and the following just continued to grow steadily. Do you want me to keep going there? As to what happened next? Okay. And so we did that from memory, a couple of years, and to the point where we started to, and we're still anonymous the whole time. And we then had an idea to explore the character more deeply, and that was when the idea was born to write a book. And so we pitched a book to, I think, about 30 different publishers, and the very, very last publisher, genuinely the very last publisher, responded in the affirmative. Most of the others either said no outright or didn't reply. And again, these emails are being sent at level 39 of Exhibition Street, Telstra. You know what I mean? If you're listening, guys, well, and yeah, so Melbourne Books picked it up, and we're like, oh, we've got a book deal, And at the time, our social following was around maybe 40, 50k or something. So there was something of substance there, from which to speak in a business sense to a publisher and say, well, these people are engaged. Then we didn't know how to use analytics or anything like that, but when we write it, these people will see and then they will buy, you know. And this guy, David Tenenbaum, great guy. We used to go to his office and we thought book publishing would be like this really cool thing. Like, you know, so you'd have this shit hot editor like going through all this stuff. Like, you know, that was not really the case. But they faithfully published it. It was the summer of 2015, and it just landed really well. Like, it became a bestseller. It was such a cool thing to write, such a fun thing to write together. We got a case of beer. We went to Melbourne University, second grade. What's their ground there? At
University Oval.
University Oval, yeah, let's call it that. And you know, we sat there with a case of beer, and we just started talking about the things we wanted to write about with the experience of grade cricket. First person, plotted it out, and it was kind of like, from memory, it was seamless. So my memory's probably bad, given we had a case of beer. But we're looking at guys on the ground and going, okay, that's Nugsy, that's this guy, and we could start developing stories about them and what happens in their life, and it just felt really free and cool because you weren't restricted by the 140 characters. And we divided up the chapters we wanted to write, kept some deadlines, met every week on Skype. At this point, Dave was in Melbourne, I was in Melbourne, and Higgins was in Sydney. We just meet on Skype. And it became a bestseller, and we still get some royalties from it now. Someone once asked if they could add it to their syllabus for school, at high school, for kids to read. Maybe not a syllabus, but that was a big moment for us, because even though, you know, I don't think Warren Buffett will be telling people to get into books, you know, if you want to make money. There's still something. It was a really cool moment for us because it moved us from being, you know, pithy tweeters to people who could deliver something long form. And then there's respect that comes with that. You get some establishment media respect with that. So we had the opportunity to go on ABC News Breakfast and talk to Paul Kennedy, which was really cool. It was really fun. And Gideon Haigh interviewed us for a feature that came out on Boxing Day, and we did a little photo shoot down at Como Park, where he plays for the Yarras. He said he would do it in exchange for Dave and I playing a game of cricket with him, which we did. And so and also just writing a book was really satisfying as well. It was just a really great way to immerse in the character and the characters, and to show people how rich the world was. And yeah, and it was just and I know I've received so many ill thought out cricket books for Christmas from family members. I'm like, well, we could just reverse this. An unsuspecting auntie can buy that for her nephew who's not ready to read about some of the things that are in there, or niece. So, you know, so then the book was out, and with the book coming out, we removed our anonymity as well, right? Obviously. Yeah. So that was part of it. It wasn't a great strategy. We were just well, we've written a book and people should know who wrote it. Yeah. And then we just got on this journey where we wanted to kind of explore it in a new medium every year, and it was more about exploration. It was more, well, can it work? Can it work on a podcast? You know, can it work on TV or whatever? And so the next one was a podcast, and we had lots of help. Richard Hines helped arrange us to get a little bit of money for doing a podcast on Fox Sports, or with Fox Sports. So I would by this time Dave had moved back to Sydney. I would fly to Sydney every week, off my own dime, to record in person, because we wanted that. We wanted to be able to do in person for the comedic kind of timing of it. And so then the podcast, you know, was well received, and the podcast was influenced by the second captaincy I was telling you about. It was kind of okay, let's talk a little bit up top about what's happening in the news. Let's do an interview. Let's take questions at the end from the audience. And, you know, I suppose looking back, what was happening was you know, I mean, I can't speak for other guys, but for me, I was becoming, you know, really immersed in it. You know, all those little peripheral elements of the venture, you know, were I lived and breathed it, little sound bites and editing things, and through that love and passion, I was developing skills. You know, so then I won't go into the ins and outs of everything with the podcast or whatever, but we ended up leaving Fox, going with Diamantina Podcast Network, which is the Batuta guys. It wasn't a big deal. It was just a better thing to do, and then the next thing we did was I actually then moved to London, which was unhelpful for the great cricketer. But my wife got a job there, and I've always wanted to support her career. You know, like I'm not going to stand in the way of somebody who's, you know, like doing something genuinely important and has worked so hard.
Were you working on the side of the grade cricket at this point in time?
Yeah, I was still full time. I was at Telstra, and then I left Telstra. I then started balancing like half-time freelance, so doing some writing for The Guardian and stuff as well with half-time. I went back to AIM to help for a little bit, which I'm grateful for. And then Tori and I got married, and then we moved to London with this job she had, because it was like, let's take this amazing opportunity.
What year is this?
So, I'm just skipping through, aren't I? That was we moved to London in 2018.
2018. So it's roughly what?
So I can do it,
12 to 18 you're doing?
Twitter account is birthed, or like blog post 2012, Twitter account 2012, Boys Come On 2013, book 2015, podcast 2016, and moved to London 2018
Jeez. So what, like side hustle on the top of
still
working
side hustle?
full-time?
Yeah, moved to London. I needed to make money.
Yeah.
I don't think we were making a lot of money back then. Really, I can't even remember if we had sponsorship. But I worked at a company called DAZN in London. So went back into corporate communications, DAZN, a huge sports streaming company, which was cool, and did TGC on the side. We did our podcast remotely. I would get up really early to do it. We would do it over Skype, no video, bit to save on the bandwidth, and you know it was a lot of like there was a lot of arms and legs to it, and it required love to do, and it was trying, but and not only that, but then I was lining up guests at the same time, and that to get the guest, I had to have Skype phone credit. That was, and like I remember we were interviewing James Sutherland once, who was the then CEO of Cricket Australia, and I could see the Skype phone credit running out. While the CEO was on, and I'm trying to like load
it's like when the 40
British pounds onto Skype phone credit to keep it a 4-way chat with James Sutherland going on the phone, and and then we used to I was editing the pod back then as well. Like you'd get all of these files, and I'm not a digital legend or anything I'm really not but getting those files, syncing them up in GarageBand, getting little sliding in little sound bites, trying to fix sounds on stuff, it looked like it was really, really laborious, but still really satisfying, because we were so lucky to have so much reinforcement from our audience online. So we just wanted to keep it going. It was very and looking like we've got so much great equipment and resources now, but there was some serious hard yards to get it to stand it up.